Right, apparently this is a stream on YouTube and is working. So if that's the case, hello. If that's not the case, I think I'm recording this at the same time, so I'll upload it later. This is part of a series of videos I started a few days ago, and they're about this guitar. This guitar that I've had since the year 2002, maybe 2003. And it is a Stratocaster, obvious to anyone who plays a guitar. And I battered it and kind of put it through everything, but I love it. And I've been trying to kind of begin to restore it because there are lots of scratches and nicks and bumps and all that kind of stuff. And I've been trying to use various methods to try and get rid of the scratches. Seems that the only one that was effective in the end was actually to use sandpaper, but I was using very fine grits of sandpaper. And I got rid of most of them. There was a scratch that was here. There's a bit of glue on that at the moment that I need to sand down because that's on top of some replacement red lacquer that I put on. There's a couple here. I've put the replacement red lacquer and they need a bit of smoothing. There was one round here that isn't really even visible, the angle that it's in. And there's one over here as well, right by my finger there. And if you just see like a bit of a glimmer of a circle of light just in front of my index finger there, that's a dip in the clear coat lacquer. And that was when I was getting rid of the scratch. So there was one scratch that was being really stubborn, and that's this one. And I've just had to very painstakingly, over a series of videos, try and get rid of that. So I've been using 800 grit sandpaper to get rid of the scratch, and I've been using some glass wipes. I've got glass cleaner there as well that you can use with a cloth. And why I've been doing that as you use the sandpaper to get rid of some of the lacquer, it starts to whiten up like this, and as you use higher grits, it gets less and less visible. But then when you temporarily add a bit of window cleaner, I mean, you could use water, but window cleaner seems to do the trick. Hopefully you can see that there is some lighter red, and that's where I have started to affect the paint layer, the red paint layer. So I am going to have to sort that out once I've gotten rid of the initial scratches and go through a repair process there. But what I intend to do is I intend to go through grits of sandpaper going all the way from 1000 grit up to 10,000 grit to try and get those scratches finer and finer and finer. So I've got like little strips, just put them around my finger. This one is 1k. I've got 1.5k, 2k, 3k, up to 5k that I'm using dry. Where's my 5k strips? There they are, exciting stuff. Boop. And then in this little tub here, I've got a strip of 7,000 grit sandpaper and a strip of 10,000 grit sandpaper. When you get to that point after that, you can use stuff called micromesh that I don't have at the moment, but I'm sure I'll be making a little order soon to get some of that. And then I'll use buffing compounds, and I've kind of gone through how some of them are really good in terms of getting some light scuffs and scratches off. So what I intend to do is start doing that. So we're going to start with 1k, and then what I'm going to do is so much of this is based on Stumac, like I always say in a lot of the videos, and Dan Irwin, I think his name is. I keep getting your surname wrong, Dan, apologies. And so we're going to go through the grit overall, kind of softly, just to knock off the dust on that. And then we'll go up a grit, go up a grit. And the area will get slightly wider each time as you try and get the edge. But as it's kind of higher and higher grits, it's kind of not too damaging. It's not the best, you know, but let's try. So you can see that starts to go white straight away. I'm going to do that across the whole area. I'm going to kind of avoid the centre of it a little bit. I'll just do that super light, because that's where the paint is. And obviously if I just go into that too gung-ho, it's going to remove the remaining paint there entirely. I'd rather not do that. Right, so I've done it that way. I'm probably going to do it, I'll call that horizontal and this vertical. So I'm going to do this vertically, and then I'll do some swirls. I just want to make sure that I'm crossing the the lines that I'm making in it, because otherwise, like, the lines might stay as scratches. So there we go. Oh, I'll get some more of the edge there. I can see some of the lines. And then when I'm done with this, you can see there's a little strip of white there. I actually made 3 strips of every grit, which was totally overkill now I've done this. When I was at the lower grit, the 800 again, the original scratch out, I went through about 5 or 6 pieces, so I thought I'd need at least 3 a piece of these, but it looks like just 1 or 2 things of that do it just fine. So I'm going to wipe this off. That look like it's gone. That's removing the excess lacquer from that 1000 grit sandpaper, 1K. So wipe that off, and then when it comes back, I'll move up to 1.5, wipe it. And so this is the excitement of the stream. So if you do want something as gentle as possible in your life, then this is it. So whilst I'm waiting for that, I'll just kind of gradually talk through some of the other things that I've shown already in other videos, but you know, let's fill up some time. So I've got all the body stuff to do. You can see that I've been working on this cavity, that bright copper that's there. This is copper foil. I've done it to the back plate as well. You can see that. I need to trim that a bit better on the string holes there. And that's to create something called a Faraday cage, and that reduces noise from pickups when they're operating. Sometimes people use something called conductive paint, and that's a dark black paint, which I did try to do, which I put on the inside. It was very dirty, and you need a lot of layers for it to work, and I couldn't get it to make contact. So I must have had to have put quite a bit more on. So I just went for this as an alternative, which seems to work just fine. I'm not even sure, because I was potentially going to lacquer the top of that conductive paint if I was going to go with that option, but I'm not sure how that affects the electrical conductance with that. And it was just because when I was putting my hands inside to do things, because I'd be taking it on and off probably fairly regularly, taking the electronics out to work on the inside of the body, I was just getting black hands, so that's why I went for this. Right, we're back. Let's move up to 1.5K. So this is the first 2 are quite subtle changes. It's just going up like 500 grit at a time. So I'm going from 1 to 1.5, then to 2, then we're going to 3, then to 5, then to 7, then to 10. Let's go to 2, and hopefully when I do this, the scratches will become finer again. That's the idea. So I think if you zoomed in with a microscope, the scratches would never go away. They'd just always be back. But it's just so it looks good enough for our eyes, basically. And I'll probably go through a buffing stage as well. I've got some little buffing wheels that can go on, a drill. So I can go through a buffing process as well. If you can hear rubbish noises whilst I'm doing this, that is the fan on my old decrepit laptop that I'm using to do this stream. Hopefully I'll be able to invest in a better laptop to do it. Right, so I've swirled that out. You could have had a mic right on the body so you could get the full ASMR experience. Might actually do that at some point. I'll have to get another mic stand though. This one here is on a gooseneck stand, so I have to get something similar. Right, so I'm going to wipe this off. And again, you can see that that's come off really clean. So I'll wait for that. Let's go back, and then I'll move on to 2K. Okay, so talked about that for the body. Let me talk a little bit about the electronics now. So the next thing I've got for this guitar is, if we look at the front scratch plate, I've got a sustainer pickup. That was made by a company in Philippines, I believe. I'll make sure that I bring down the box and show it off, because I'm sure the maker will be interested when it's done. At least I hope they are. And then I've got 2 iron gear pickups. These are called smokestacks, and they're called double coils. I'll talk more about them in a bit. They've got a high and a low output. I've attached these 2 switches there. Top is low output, middle is off, bottom is high output. and the same with that one for there. This one apparently doesn't sound when it's not in sustainer mode, so you'd lose your neck pickup, and you'll probably think, why would you do that? And you'd be right to ask. I'm also going to have a Roland GK pickup that's fitted here. That's why there's a little hole here in the scratch plate that you can see there, and that's for the leads from the bottom of the pickup to go through the body, so that will probably be covered up. These are switches for that GK pickup. No, these are for the sustainer, these two. One's for the sustainer on and off, one is for the harmonic mode on and off. Standard 5-way switch. This is the GK switch, that is built-in guitar signal, GK guitar signal only, mix of the two. So I'll have one tone and one volume control for the whole guitar, and that will be the volume for the GK. Although I do have a dual potentiometer, but the issue is the electronics on these. You see here, these are called CTS pots. This is 250 kiloohms that's recommended for here. So this is called a CTS pot, and they make high quality components basically. It's 250 kiloohms. This is only 50 kiloohms, so it would be really, really dull coming through that if I had a volume control going through there. But if I get a dual one, it'll be dual 250, and then I'd have to figure out a way to use resistors to make the GK component of it go back to 50, which I'm not sure I can do. But yeah, so that's what we'll do. And so there's quite a complicated wiring situation. These two things here, they're the underside of these two buttons. You can see that. And they are to provide some basic switching. There's the underside again. They're to provide some basic switching for the Roland GK. Right. Next grid. So I'm going to move to 2K. There we go. I'm hiding nothing from you. Now, the scratches actually do look a bit duller when I look back at them this time, and they do look a bit finer, which is good. Otherwise this would be a total waste of time. So let's start off with some straight lines. So for you that's horizontal. Then I'm going to go get rid of a bit of that, so I'm not using any of the lacquer on top of lacquer. I'm going to go vertical. Now, people do this with different approaches from the videos that I've seen, and this is strictly kind of my amateur interpretation of it. So you can, Schumacher definitely recommends that you don't curve, but that's when using a sanding block. And sanding block's quite big, obviously. I'm curving this, but it's right around my fingers, so it's a very, very small controlled area. So I'm trying to just really direct it, because what I'm doing is so fine that I really don't want to use any more sandpaper than is necessary. Right, so I've got my swirly swirls on there. Get the edges of that. So that has gone out into a larger shape. Looks more like a rectangle, obviously. Swipe. Clean that up. And I'll move on to 3K. Okay, get the excess stuff off there. So, like I said, I'm calling this the Nostromocaster. I'm a huge fan of the Alien series of films, and I love the idea of kind of the worn technology. And even though I'm trying to do up this body, I think the kind of the franken nature of what I'm doing to this Stratocaster here kind of maybe justifies the Nostromo title once it's all in place. So that means, what does that mean? That means it's going to have the custom electronics. It's going to have the GK installed. Just giving this a clean. So I'll be able to do a lot of stuff with it. And when I apply the sustainer pickup, the idea is that when that trigger synthesizes, it will sustain indefinitely from the guitar itself. There are ways with a guitar synthesizer that you can just hit a foot switch or something like that, and that will sustain it within the effects unit or the synthesizer plug-in or the analog synthesizer or whatever it is that you're triggering with the guitar. It doesn't have quite the same effect though as sustaining it directly from the guitar. It's kind of, you feel a lot more of the play, I believe, from that. In a similar way to how you can control the sustain using an EBow on a single string. What I'm hoping for is the ability to do that with all, well, maybe all 6 strings, but a lot of the time I'd just be using maybe 2 or 3 strings. Right. Okay. Happy with that. Put some of these in the bin. Just back here. This is my kitchen. I've got such a small amount on this desk. This is a spare kitchen table that I'm working on here. And yeah, like there's just boxes up on that side of the room here. So that's like where a lot of stuff is stored. You can see like there's some storage here. And it's always a total mess. And I'm doing this as a hobby because like I've got a full-time job, a very tiring job. And so when I get a chance to sit down, I find this to be like a really good way to relax. So in some ways it can feel aimless, I suppose. But I'm just hoping I get there, because I do have guitar that I would like to play. Right, I'm going to speed this up a little bit. I'm going to dry that. Yep, okay. Got to move to 3K. I do think those scratches are getting finer. I've got to make sure I concentrate more on this edge though. I think I might be neglecting that edge a little bit, so let's work on that now. Okay. 3,000 grit. Gonna go vertical first this time. What's interesting is when I press lightly with the 3K, it's actually kind of staying within the confines of the rectangle that I've been sanding out gradually. Okay, make sure I concentrate on this bottom here, like I said I would before. Try and move some of those marks a little bit. Move along. And I've not been doing it so much during this sanding, but when you do it, it's a good idea to keep an eye on the colour that's going on there, because if you start to see red, or even if it's not bits of red, a lot of red, that means obviously you're digging into the paint itself and you've gone beyond the clear lacquer, the clear coat. So it's good to be aware of that and to check that regularly, so you're not going too far and you're not stripping off paint that you don't want to. On this edge a bit more. If you can hear lots of humming and bad audio, my sincere apologies. It is the fan on my decrepit laptop, and it is the fridge that's right behind me. There's an old knackered free fridge we got from somewhere, or cheap fridge we got from somewhere. Right. Quite happy with that. These scratches a bit more. Just making it a lot bigger though, which is not what I wanted. At the same time, I don't want random bits of scratches around and about here. At least I can make those finer with the finer grits once that happens. Okay. Let's finish it with some swirls. Okay. There we go. So this is going to form part of a larger guitar system. Obviously the guitar's the front end and people have effect systems. I do have a rather gargantuan effect system upstairs that I built myself. I started it in the first COVID lockdown in the summer of 2020. I've been working on it off and on ever since. And I'm calling that the Odysseus. Originally I was going to call that the Nostromo. But I decided to call it the Odysseus. It was because I was reading this Greek myths and legends for kids thing to my son. At the time, it was Homer's Odyssey. And it inspired me to do that and name it that. I like to give them these grand names, so it seems like what I'm doing is a bit less, sad. Right, let's put that down there. Let's dry off here. I'll wait a moment. There we go. Okay. So, moving to 5,000. This is my 5k. That I labelled all in advance. Like a good boy. I know that if I hadn't done it though, I would have totally forgotten. I don't do this because I necessarily want to. It's because I know my memory is so terrible that if I don't do it, I'll instantly forget everything and do it wrong. I'm not getting much of a reaction off that. I don't know if that's because the grit's gotten to a certain level now, like it's become that fine that it's hard to see what it's doing. It could be that. I am seeing some scratching. I might try another piece. See if the same thing's happening. But you can hear the squeak, so if it's squeaking, it's not really cutting. That is much more like it's just squeaking. Right, I'll try. I can feel grit on the paper. Right, I'll try a bit more pressure and fold it in half that way. No, it is cutting. It's just very fine at this point. Must be all what it is. Okay. There we go. I'll move down a bit. I'm just trying to see if there's any lacquer on that. There's a very small amount. Let's see. I'm hoping that's a good sign. Fold this over a bit more. Do it again. Apply some pressure. I wish I knew what I could tell you at this point, but it's kind of because of my lack of experience. I don't know if this is good or bad, or what is normal. It certainly feels very smooth at this point. It feels less. It feels duller, if that makes any sense here, than it does on the lacquer there. It feels less polished, but it feels smooth to the touch. So maybe I'm just working out scratches at this point. Although I will say I do have a bit of red on there, so I might be going a bit deeper than I need to. So I'll avoid that centre a little bit more, just to make sure with this 5,000. I want, although with the 5,000 I did touch the edge of this, which there's actually some lacquer there right on the top, so it could have been that. Okay, let's go over the top there. Right, okay. I'll kind of leave it at there for 5. Well, knack bits of sandpaper there. Get the 5k off. So at this point I'm moving to the wet paper. Now apparently the idea is with wet and dry paper is you should soak it for a long period, like 24 hours at least, before you use it. It makes the paper spongy, and apparently that makes it more effective. Apparently. So I hope when I move to 7,000 grit on here, we'll start to see that effect start to take shape. So I'm going to fish that. I've got my little water bowl. I'll move that over here so you can see a little bit. So the green backed paper, which I can look when I look over here, I've got a pile of sandpaper here. You can see is that's 7,000. The blue one is the 5, and the dark blue, this one very dark blue grey, is the 10. So I'm going to move to 7. Straight away, just wet to the surface. I'm just going to go for it. feel something. It must be because the grit's so fine at this point. And I'm going to have to just regularly wipe this off and dry this off, just to see that it is being effective. Yeah, you can still see it's white when we dry it. Although saying that, it is even finer in the middle, so I think it is working in the middle. Move a bit further up on this paper. Work on the bottom. Gonna put a bit more welly in. This is going to take so long. I mean, like, I'm doing this, I'm kind of going to fill the bits in the body. I'm going to use super glue to replace part of the lacquer. I'm going to sort out electronics and the neck. The neck actually needs quite a bit of work as well. And I'm installing, although this will be a quick bit, locking tuners, some official Fender ones. I had to get them from America. I'm in England, the UK. Because they're left-handed, because this is a left-handed guitar body, and it was the only place I could find left-handed versions. Nowhere in Europe had them in stock. Although it didn't take too long, I think it took 2 or 3 weeks for them to come through. So that was good. Hopefully this is squeaking itself clean. So tell my son to brush his teeth. Right. That's definitely finer and darker than before. Okay, that's 7. Wipe that off. This is lacquer. And dry it off. See the remaining scratches. Then I'm going to move to the final grit 10,000, and then I'm going to use cleaning compound, which I'll probably do at a later time. I need to end this video thing. I don't think my computer can handle a stream for particularly long, and I've already been doing this for quite a while, so there you go. I've been live for 27 minutes, it says. Right. Okay, so yeah. Let's go to 10. Also, I think my compound's in a box that's underneath an audio interface that I've got this microphone hooked up to, and it'd be an utter faff. So yeah, I'll end the stream before I start polishing. Right, 10,000. Here we go. Now when you feel this, it feels like there's barely anything to it. But I can feel that cutting. It does feel a bit scratchy. Hope that's a good sign. I'm going all around this. You can see a bit of residue there actually. Go, wipe off the excess. So around that now, there's kind of like, there is a haze there that needs to be buffed out. You can see that white mark, if you like, still there, but it's definitely fading and getting finer every single time. So, put on a bit more. I feel like I can put a bit more pressure on at this point, I hope, because the grit is so fine that potentially doing less damage. So that looks very white there, but we're going to clean that off and then dry it to check the remaining scratches. Hopefully that'll be darker again. There we go. Get my most of the liquid off that surface. That is looking very fine. I think with the polishing compounds that I use, I've got something called a G3 compound and a metal polish that's recommended for this kind of stuff called semi-chrome polish. It's German. I think I'll be able to get rid of that whiteness. I'll do one more bit with 10K. Do this more circle focus this time as well. Get more swirls in. It seems to be that the cut of the paper now is not really having much of an effect. Hopefully that's also a good sign. Which means there's nothing much more it can do at that point. Okay. Go on, lad. Right. Last little bit. Wipe off some of that excess lacquer that I've just sanded. And then try that back to see what the result is. Okay, well I hope that when I've watched this video back I can see a difference between the beginning and the end. And I can buff this so that's reduced. And so there will be a dip, like there's a dip there, and there's a dip around here somewhere. I must have done quite a good job, because I can't see it right now. Yeah, and then I'll apply a very thin layer of super glue, and that'll get scratched off with a razor blade. I've done that in another vid as well, and I'll be repeating that process. And hopefully I'll be getting to somewhere where this guitar has been put back to some of its former glory. So, peace be the journey. See you later.